Hello and welcome to CMC Markets Trading Outlook for the week of February the 23rd, 2015. My name is Colin Szyszynski, Chief Market Strategist. Our theme this week is Greece, Japan, and Central Bank are in focus for traders. And as I'm doing this on Friday afternoon of the 20th, there are numerous reports going around back and forth over whether or not there's going to be a deal reached to extend Greece's bailout and continue the process of trying to sort out their debt and their humanitarian crisis. So on the interim, though, the last news out was that it seems as though they've reached some sort of agreement, and as such, we have the DAX rallying to a new high. We've got the euro rallying. We've got U.S. stocks moving back up into positive territory. If we do get a deal, we may continue to see quite a bit of this follow through into next week, because a lot of people by this point have gone home for the weekend. So we could see this pick up again as well on Monday and influence trading into the early part of the new week. If something happens and goes wrong and this falls apart, then we could see things go back the other way and more continued speculation on what may or may not happen. But at this point, it does look as though there are some signs for optimism for Greece, in which case we could see certainly the euro, which has been particularly depressed lately, bounce back, and as well that could also take some of the overhang off of stock markets. So what are we seeing today? We'll move into some of the other highlights of the week as I move on, but let's just start with some of the European markets here. I wanted to highlight that we are seeing a new high for the DAX, but the client sentiment towards indices has been quite mixed here. And just to begin with, we can see that even with a new high on the DAX, we actually have clients have been shorting into this rally. We're seeing today a big increase in short positions among top clients against the DAX, even though it's broken out to a new high. On the S&P, which is sitting just below new all-time highs, the sentiment is a little bit more mixed here. And even the S&P just touching 2100. We have clients net long in terms of the number of clients. However, on position value, we still have clients net short, which tells us that we have more conviction at this point among the bears who have taken on larger positions on the short side than the bulls who have taken on smaller positions on the long side. We're also have been seeing mixed sentiment lately in currencies, and I just wanted to highlight that as well. We have the euro dollar, the euro yen, and in cable, and in this case we still see that the clients have been net short the euro, but today we are starting to see some short covering. This trade had been pretty crowded, and as we're seeing the euro start to bounce back, we're seeing, look, we have an 8% drop in the level of short positions against the euro today. Euro yen, same thing, short positions starting to come off. So we are seeing a bit of encouragement and renewed interest in the euro. Cable is still mixed here. We have net long position on number of clients, but we still have a net short position on position value. It's coming off a little bit, but at this point sentiment is still somewhat mixed on those markets. So I'll just quickly here, let's take a look at the DAX, the S&P, and the euro to kick things off here. So as we can see, this is just today here on Friday the 20th on the Greece news. We do have a breakout here. This is from an ascending triangle. It was range bound between about 10,580, 11,002. That measures up to about 11,420. So we are seeing a pretty solid breakout here. 11,000 big round number may emerge as new support for the DAX. And as this does break an ascending triangle here, so pretty significant technical breakout on what looks to be positive news for the euro heading into the new week. We'll see on Monday, do we get any follow through on this. The second thing I wanted to highlight is euro dollar, which is also starting to climb significantly. So let's bring that up. And we're also starting to see a bit of a rebound here. In fact, this is looking a bit like a hammer here, where it's come down, had held support here just below 113, and it's now popped back up to 114. The channel really is about 112.50 to about 114.80, 115 even, and so far this channel remains intact. But it does look now we've broken out of a downtrend here. And if I just show this, I can just show this on this line here, We are starting to break out of a shorter term downtrend here. We're starting to go sideways, maybe showing a little bit of signs of life here. And on that basis, we could see if we do get some follow through, perhaps some movement up here in the euro in the coming days. First resistance 114.80 to 115, and then here up closer to 116.80 to 117 for the euro dollar. Let's take a peek here at the S&P as well. The U.S. stocks have also responded quite favorably to the word out of Europe that it looks like there could be a deal. Basically, it would be an extension of the basically an extension to give them more time to renegotiate the longer term structure of Greece's debt, so that they can try and crawl out of the depression that they've been in the last several years. We had seen a drop off early. The S&P's bounced back, and it's still bumping up here against this 2100. Still trying to get through at this point. We'll see if it manages to break out. If it doesn't and starts to fall back, then we could almost call this a pretty big double top here. But right now, S&P's bumping up against top of a trading channel. And looking here at the Dow. Very briefly, same sort of thing. We had seen some, the Dow had been rolling over. It's gained some life. It's now up in positive territory. But really, it's got to get back above this 18,100. There's an 18,000 to 18,100 resistance zone where it's failed. If it fails again, it's a double top. If it breaks through, then you could have some pretty significant upside based on measured moves, because this is a pretty wide channel. This is like a 1,000-point channel here. So there is some technical upside if the Dow can break out. And recall, of course, that in the past, big sell-offs in crude oil have ignited long-term big gains in the stock market. So there is some room potentially for the U.S. to move up if some of the uncertainty surrounding Greece clears up. Then people could go back to focusing on the ECB and quantitative easing and stimulus and so on, rather than political risk. Speaking of quantitative easing and stimulus and things like that, the other big focus this week, as we moving beyond Europe and moving beyond the Greece and the political situation, is there are a number of central bankers speaking this week that could attract quite a bit of attention. In particular, Fed Chair Yellen has her semi-annual testimony this week. As well, we have big speeches from ECB President Draghi, as well as Bank of Canada Governor Poloz, are all speaking. On Friday here, we had a very weak Canadian retail sales report, fell 2% in December, and the speculation on another interest rate cut coming in Canada, and the calls for it have started to grow dramatically. So people may pay quite a bit of attention to what he has to say about the economy and monetary policy. In terms of the ECB now, it'll be the questions will be around ongoing support of Greece. What do they plan on doing to stimulate the European economy? If there is a deal, then some of the political risk goes away, and they'll probably focus back on the QE program. The Fed Chair Yellen, really big testimony here. Since the last Fed meeting, we had this smashing, fantastic U.S. non-farm payrolls report. Generally speaking, U.S. Economic indicators have been pretty good heading into February. The first February indicator, the flash PMI, was above expectations at about 54. So the U.S. economy appears to be humming along quite well. So the question will be, when does the Fed plan on starting to raise interest rates and normalize monetary policy? They've been pedaled to the floor for years, and now they've ended quantitative easing. They're done tapering, and now the next stage would be to start raising interest rates and aligning interest rates with inflation once again. So there'll probably be a lot of questions surrounding her testimony about when do they plan to do that. The Fed members have still been talking about mid-year. A lot of the ones that have been out speaking lately. So we'll see what she has to say on that. Could have anything that comes off as hawkish or could boost the U.S. dollar, may overhang stocks a little bit. If she comes off as dovish, could knock back the U.S. dollar. So important to keep an eye on that as we go through. So we'll probably see some of the active things, not just things like euro dollar, but also in terms of the price of gold as well, depending on what Chair Yellen has to say this week. The other thing I wanted to highlight this week that we do have towards the end of the week is the end of the month is approaching. We will start to get the second crack at Q4 GDP reports, and also we get the monthly basket of indicators from Japan. So that could be quite significant. And we will get flash PMI for China as well. It was delayed because of the Lunar New Year holiday, but midweek we should see that from China as well and Japan. So some of their data may also have an influence on trading as the week progresses. Just wanted to highlight, moving on to commodity markets here, we're seeing something interesting. For quite a while, traders had been net short on crude oil, but more recently they're starting to come back around the other way, and we've now got a pretty significant net long position in crude oil. So there's been a lot of short covering, profit taking on bearish positions, and people starting to speculate on bullish positions in crude oil. However, what's interesting about that is that we still have U.S. dollar CAD long. So you have people are bullish on crude oil but bearish on the Canadian dollar, which is quite intriguing because the Canadian dollar has been kind of following crude oil up and down. So when we've seen the crude oil go down, U.S. dollar CAD's been going up. And there's an interesting divergence there. The other intriguing one is we have gold. Gold is clients have also been going to a fairly significant net long position, and even today we've got an increase here of about 8% on top clients on increasing long positions in gold. What's intriguing about that as we head into the weekend is that the gold is actually under a little bit of pressure here. I'll bring the chart up, but we're in a bit of a mixed situation for gold here. We've had it's come back off. You've had a pretty good correction. This uptrend line here, though, is holding. This is the 1200 round number. So far, so good. We'll see what happens with the Greek deal, because gold here back in January and December had been benefiting from speculation, capital leaving the euro in fear of that things could go off the rails with Greece. Now, I guess the question is, has this sell-off corrected that fully, or is there more downside? If we see 1200 break, the next big support's closer to 1170. On the other hand, if we get a rebound here, first resistance is in around 1220 to 1225. I'll just pull up the chart here for WTI crude as well. What we're seeing with crude oil is it's basically leveling off here. We had a huge downtrend and it got really oversold. It's had an initial pop. It's now kind of consolidating here between about $47 and about 54. And here it's sitting around in the middle of that, just above $50. $50 round number comes in right here. So we're still in kind of in a backing and filling and churning and leveling off kind of trading environment for oil, where supply is continuing to grow. The number of drill rigs is coming back down, but this price war could still go on for quite a while. But basically, what we're looking at is oil continues to digest the previous big sell-off, and but you can't rule out another down leg at this point. So we could still see quite a choppy trading continue in crude oil for quite some time. With Bank of Canada Governor Poloz talking this week, let's also take a look at action in U.S. dollar CAD. I had mentioned previously that the Canadian retail sales came out and they were pretty dismal. And what have we seen here? We're seeing it starting to pop back. The most of this big uptrend here in dollar CAD was from weakness in the oil price. We'd seen it get pretty extremely overbought, has started to come back, but look here, RSI's broken into a downtrend, suggests the momentum starting to tick upward again. Similarly, we've seen it hold support here in around 124. This Fibonacci level around 124.40. It's popped back up above 125. Initial resistance here about 125.60, and then in and around 126.20 we could see, and these highs are closer to 120, closer to 127 in a bit. And the previous high here, shadow high, is up around 128. So what's going to be important with dollar CAD will be the speech from Governor Poloz. Does he hint at further interest rate cuts, and could it be more than 25 basis points? Remember, they had gone from, in 2010 they went from 0.5%, 0.50 to 1.0% interest rates. They've now gone back to the middle of that to 0.75%. If there's talk about going below 0.5% on Canadian interest rates, you could see some the loonie weaken further and dollar CAD climb further. So far, people have been considering that expectations are that the Bank of Canada will do another quarter point cut, take it back to 0.5%, where it was during 2009, the early part of 2010. As I said, if we see potential for deeper interest rate cuts, then we could see the loonie weaken further. So keep an eye out for that as we move through the speech. A few more charts that we will look at here briefly is in Asia Pacific markets. As I said, the main focus of news from Asia Pacific area is later in the week with Chinese flash PMI as well as Japan's monthly basket of economic data. But we've seen some encouragement in Asia Pacific markets as well. So I did just want to highlight a couple of charts here. First of all, we've had a pretty substantial breakout in the Japan 225, broken out here over 18,070. The low end of this channel was 16,400. So this is a huge channel. Big breakout. Technically, for a measured move, there's significant upside. It's trading here about 18.5. Next round number is around 19,000. This here was 17.6. Let's call that 17,525 plus 475 is about here. So just measuring up from here only, you've kind of achieved this here. You may see some backing and filling in the coming days. It's had a pretty good move up, but this 18,070 now emerges as new support, with more support probably in here, say around 18,250, give or take. The Australian market has also been on the rebound quite significantly lately. As we can see, it had broken out here over 5,800. 5,850 has become new support. It's bumping up against 5,950 with the 6,000 round number looming as well. So maybe a little bit of upside for Australia, but I could also spend the week just kind of digesting some of its more recent gains. And I'll just highlight some of the Asia Pacific currencies here. We'll start with Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar and Kiwi dollar have been showing signs of bottoming out lately. As we can see here, we've had a double bottom in the Australian dollar. It's stabilizing here between about 77.20 and about 78.60. And if it can break through this, then you could see first resistance around 79.40, or possibly even a retest of this 80-cent round number here. Similarly, for the New Zealand dollar, where we're also seeing signs of base building here. Huge downtrend, big washout. It's popped back up, but guess what? It's actually holding 75 cents pretty nicely here. Next is 75.90, and above that would then be around 77, high 76s. So it's had a bit of a pop. It's leveling off, but if you do break it again, there is some potential upside. Next downside support here. That was about 74.50. These former resistance levels here. And the last thing I'll highlight here is dollar yen and euro dollar. So we'll start with dollar yen. And as we can see, it's still pretty much going sideways in a channel here. We are seeing higher lows, so a bit of an uptrend, hanging around 119, more resistance a little bit above 120, 120.50 for dollar yen, and but euro dollar could also, or sorry, euro yen, my apologies, could also be quite active this week with the euro starting to come back around. So as we bring it up here, we can see huge sell-off. This was on the big outflow of capital from Europe to Japan on the Greek concerns. If those start to go away, then we could see a continued rebound in the euro. We've had about a 23% retracement so far, up to around 134.80, 135. We're holding 135 here. And the next resistance is in and around 136.80, and this retracement level here is about 137.60 on the upside. So we're looking at last week we had a lot of traders were a little confused, waiting to see what would happen with Greece. It looks like we're getting something with Greece. Now people will start to react to that. We could see the follow-through dominate the first couple of days. Then as we move into the middle of the week, the focus goes more on central banks with the speeches and testimony from the U.S., from Europe, and from Canada. And then as we move into the back part of the week, the focus then shifts to Asia-Pacific markets. And through all of this, we're also approaching the end of the month, so then we'll start to see traders start to set up for the first week of March as well. So it looks like we could have another fairly active week for trading in the markets.